everybody, I'm Stéphanie from the channel La Couture du Renard. I am a French seamstress and here I share step-by-step tutorial for clothes and accessories. I have to apologize for my English accent and grammar. They are not perfect, but I'm working on it and I really hope to improve. Thanks so much for being patient and kind with me. Now, let's get sewing. Hi there, welcome to Fox Sewing Channel. Today we're making sweater 124 from the October 2025 issue of Burda Style. This one perfect for beginners, so we'll be taking it nice and easy. Let's start with the fabric. I'm using a knit jersey 270 grams per meter and 144 centimeters wide. I actually grabbed it on sale for €6 for 3 meters. Such a bargain! Originally it was 20 for the same length. To make this sweater, I traced the pattern from the Burda magazine. I actually made a previous tutorial showing you how to do that, so feel free to check it out. I noticed that on this pattern the sweater length was way too long for me, so I shortened the bodice by 18 centimeters. Because of that, I ended up using less than 1.5 meters of fabric instead of the 1.80 meters they recommend. I cut all my fabric pieces and I make sure to make all the notches, either with little snip along the edge and by using tailor's tacks at the dart on the center front neckline. Those markings will be super important later when we attach the neckline facing. To sew this sweater properly, we'll also need some stay tape at the neckline. Why? Because the neckline is cut on the bias, and without it, it will stretch out of the shape. I also cut some ribbon to sew into the shoulder seams, to keep them from stretching. And finally, I cut a strip about 3.5 centimeters wide and around 80 centimeters long, which we'll use to make the neckline fastening. Here are the pattern pieces laid out on the fabric before cutting. I didn't follow the cutting layout from the magazine, because I managed to place the front and back pieces face to face. Earlier, I mentioned that my method involved using tailor's tacks, little thread at the dart corner and also at the neckline. Once I've placed them, I open up the fabrics and snip the thread between the two layers. That way, the markings are transferred perfectly and the sweater is symmetrical on both sides of the fabric. I also added a tiny piece of red thread right at the center from neckline. That's going to be my reference point when I attach the fastening. Now let's move on the iron so we can apply the fusible stay tape. This is a narrow strip about 1 centimeter wide with little thread woven inside to stabilize it when you press it in onto an edge like this neckline. I'll say it again, if you sew along the true biais without stay tape, your fabric will stretch, sometimes by 10, 15 or 20%, depending on the elasticity, and your neckline will ripple. When pressing it on, work from top to bottom with the iron, but don't stretch the fabric. Since we are already at the ironing board, let me show you this little tool I love using. It's a heat-resistant plastic ruler marked with measurement, so I can press my hem directly at 2 centimeters. It's super handy because if you try to measure and pin a hem with a regular ruler, especially a drapery fabric, it takes forever. Now, let's start sewing with the darts. Begin at the notches at the dart edge and sew toward the little red thread marking the end of the dart. Here's a quick tip for sewing knights. It uses woolly nylon in my bobbin. Since I'm working on an industrial sewing machine, I don't have a zigzag stitch, and the woolly nylon gives me the stretch I need for knits and jersey. If you're working on a domestic machine at home, just use a stretch stitch, a small zigzag. For the needle thread, I use standard polyester thread, size 120. Next up are the shoulder seams. I had a ribbon along them to stabilize the seam and prevent it from stretching out over time with the fabric weight. I place the ribbon on top, then the front piece and finally the back. My pattern has 1 cm seam allowances, but my serger stitch at 0.7 cm, so I align the fabric so the knife trims off the extra 3 mm. Now let's attach the neckline facing strip. First, I fold it in a half, right side out. I pin it along the neckline, starting at the red center from mark. I pin all the way around and overlap slightly when I get back to the red mark. At that point, I mark the exact center with a washable pen, so I know where to start and stop my stitching. Then I sew all around the neckline. Since the fabric tends to stretch, I'm really glad I applied the stave tape earlier. At the V of the neckline, I need to land exactly on the point. If not, the V will look messy. There are a couple of methods for this type of neckline. The one I show you, or the Y method, where the band doesn't overlap at the bottom of the V. Once my neckline seam is done, I clip the right into the point of the V and trim down the seam allowance to just 0.4 cm. Then I press the facing to the inside and understitch it all around the neckline. At the bottom of the V, I tuck on edge of the band neatly inside for a cleaner finish. Now onto the sleeve. Be careful not to mix them up. Left sleeve on the right armhole, and so on. On this pattern, Burda marked a notch with the number 5 on both the sleeves and the front bodice. Just match those notches, right side together, and you won't go wrong. To set the sleeve, I first pin at the bottom underarm seam, then at notch 5, then at the sleeve cap, and finally down the other side. In the Burda pattern suggests running a gathering stitch at the sleeve cap, but since this is knit fabric, it's not necessary. It's easy enough to stretch the bodice slightly to match the sleeve while serging. I serge the sleeve on removing pin as I go. Don't forget this step, or you will end up with broken pin, bent needles, holes, or even a thread jam. I adjust the fabric as I go to avoid puckers. Once the sleeve is attached, I line up the underarm seam to close the sleeve. Pay special attention at the armpit cross seam. Just push one seam allowance one away on the other seam to opposite way. They lock together perfectly as you serge across. Then I serge all the way down to the hem. At this point, I checked my seams, especially the underarm cross, which turned out perfect here. Now, it's time for the sleeve hems and the sweater hem. For this, I use a cover stitch machine. It's kind of a mix between a sewing machine and a serger, and its main job is to sew hems, just like the ones you'd see on t-shirts. But I'll be honest, a cover stitch machine is expensive. If you don't have one, you can get almost the same result with a twin needle and woolly nylon in the bobbin. Much more affordable. Here's a finishing tip for cover stitch hems. Always pull the thread tails to the inside and tie a knot. Otherwise, the stitching can unravel quickly. And that's it, the sweater is finished. I'll give it a final press and put it on the dress form so you can see how it looks. Here it is! I turned out almost exactly like the one in the magazine. I shortened the sleeve by 6 cm and the bodice length by 18 cm. For reference, I'm 1.65 meters tall and the sweater hits me right at the hips. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, don't forget to subscribe. See you very soon for the next video.